Okay, so you've completed the chapter review already. You've done your word search. Now we're going to take a quick look at some Are You Ready problems just to refresh your memory on stuff you've done in the past. So this is some work that you did back in 6th grade, and these were area problems. So area of a rectangle is length times width. So in the case of a 10 and a 4, you do 10 times 4 is 40. And those are always in square units. Anytime you're doing area, you're doing square units. For a triangle, it's base times height, and you divide it by 2. And that's really, the reason you divide by 2 is if you think about it, if you made that a rectangle, to find its area you would do base times height or length times width. Well, you're only getting half of it, so that's why we either multiply by a half, or another way that that's sometimes written, and actually the way I like to solve it, is base times height divided by 2. I like that partly because people just don't like dealing with fractions. So dividing by 2 is the same thing as multiplying by a half. So you've had the chance to work these problems. Now if you haven't, if you just turn this video on thinking you're supposed to just watch, you're not. You're supposed to work these 4 problems first and then turn the video on. So if you need to, pause the video now, go back, work the 4 problems, and then come watch the video. Okay, so let's see how you did. Our first one is base times height, or length times width. So when you're finding the area of a rectangle, it is length times width. In this case, it's going to be the 3 times the 14. That will be the area of this. Let's move that over, and I'm going to put a little a in front of it to show that I'm finding area. So I'm getting the area of this, 3 times the 14, and that is 42. And whenever we show area, we show it in square units. So I have 2 ways I can write it. I can write it as 42 square meters, since this is in meters, or I can write it as 42 meters squared. Both of those mean the same thing. Those both indicate the same answer. Number 2, triangles. Now remember what we had above. Triangles are solved either by saying 1/2 of the base times the height, or that's the same equation as saying the base times the height divided by 2. And again, I like the divided by 2 part. And that's what I'm going to use when I solve it now. So my base is 5. My height is 10. Height's always shown by this line coming off a right angle. And I'm dividing that by 2. So 10 times 5 is 50. Divided by 2 is 25. So this would be either 25 square yards, or I could show it as 25 yards squared. Those both mean the same thing. Number 3, again, I'm going to use the base times height divided by 2. Here my base is 17. My height is 9. I'm going to divide that by 2. 17 times 9 is 153 divided by 2. Let's check that out. 153 divided by 2. 2 goes into 15 7 times. That's 14. 1 left over. Bring down the 3. 2 goes into 13 6 times. That's 12. 1 left over. Bring a 0 all the way down. Now, when I bring that 0 down, I have to bring a decimal point up. 2 goes into 10 5 times. That's exactly 10, and I'm done. And then I'm ready to go ahead, and so my area is 76.5 square millimeters, or I can go ahead and write that as 76.5 millimeters squared. Either one of those works as the way of showing the area of the triangle on number 3. All right, problem number 4 And let's pick green because it's a good color for a yard. Anita's yard is in the shape of a triangle. It has a height of 35 feet and a base of 50 feet. What's the area of the yard? So I always recommend that if there isn't a picture drawn, that students draw a picture. So here's Anita's yard. There's the height, 35 feet. Here's the base, 50 feet. The math for this is going to be base times height, 35 times 50, divided by 2. So 35 times 50, let me get my trusty calculator out here. 35 times 50, 1,750 divided by 2. So divide that by 2, and you get 875. So Anita's yard has an area of 875, and this is in feet, so it would be square feet, or it could be written as 875 feet squared. So there you go. That's your Are You Ready? Your quick check. We're going to be looking at this kind of math. These were all things that you were to have learned in 6th grade, but we're going to be continuing using this as we go through this next chapter. So if you weren't sure how to do these problems, go back and study this. This is knowledge that you're going to want to have as we move forward. All right, last one. Anita's yard is in the shape of a triangle. So let's see, yards. Green's a good color for a yard. Nice grassy yard. There's my height. The height of this triangle is 35 and the base is 50. And I would recommend, I'm going to make my 50 look a little better. I would recommend anytime you get it as a word problem without a picture, draw the picture. Probably make it easier to solve. So I've got 35 times 50 divided by 2. 35 times 50 is 1,750 divided by 2. And I can be using a calculator here. I happened to work the problem out ahead of time, so I knew what the answer was supposed to be. Then I've got 1,750 divided by 2 is 875. If I could do a better job of making a 5. There we go. So my answer is either 875 square feet, or I can write it as 875 feet squared. All right, so you had a chance to check your work on that, and that's going to get you ready for the work we start next week, which will be lesson 1, all about circles. Yay!